Alright, so I just want to make a very brief response to that which X Morning Shadow X had to say about ethics and morals and not changing your ethics and morals without, even though you don't have a theology that is behind the ethics and morals. And the question though is, you said at the end most people are not going to change their ethics and morals because the risks are too great. The issue is though, what about stealing something when you know you're not going to get caught? Are you allowed to do that? Of course not. If you believe in God, so you think, what they call the perfect crime, things that you're not going to get caught. I guess the example you might give is running a red light at 3 o'clock in the morning and you see there's no one around and there's no cameras on the red light, and you come to a full stop and you do everything safely, and then you decide you're just going to run the red light. Why should you have to wait the extra 30 seconds? Do people do that? Yes, no. Some people do, some people don't. That's really more of a parable for something bigger, meaning what about the cases where you're not going to get caught, where you're at work and you think you're not going to get caught. People, they do all kinds of things as far as that's concerned. Stealing pens from work or things like that, stealing hotel towels or things that people, in the culture, or it's people say they do, or they, where do those things come in? Like I remember in yeshiva they told us, you want a hotel towel? Well, you ask them, am I allowed to take this? Then it's not stealing, right? Because you ask them, and it's the same thing, anywhere, But a lot of people, they just, they try to see what can they get away with. Whereas if you've developed an actual morality, it's not just about whether or not you're going to get caught, but that this is wrong and it's essentially wrong. And I do believe that it's possible for someone to have no theology or to be a professed atheist and still be good for goodness sake, not be good because you're afraid you're going to get caught, this and that, but just simply be good for goodness sake. I do believe there are people like that, and but it's very difficult and very rare. But those people who are just good for goodness sake, like the Christmas song goes, are so because of God, whether they profess a God or not. Their goodness for goodness sake is a recognition of God. I would say that is my approach, but for you to say that people just don't do it because of the risks involved, they're not going to do something big like rob a bank. So then that's the question of these levels of morality. Meaning, if they knew they could rob the bank without getting caught, would they do it? Most people still wouldn't. The example, but there are other things that people do. I think about the episode of The Simpsons, Lisa Simpson, the Eighth Commandment, her parents were stealing cable, and the whole issue of stealing cable and the other consequences that were going on then, which relate back to what we started our discussion about today. The types of things that Bart was watching on the stolen cable. And, and then nowadays, back to what we were saying, this issue of ethics within things that a lot of people would consider sinful, and yet the questions of ethics for those who do not believe it to be sinful, but still ethics. This issue of stealing cable is related to something bigger. This issue of getting things for free, where people are being essentially victimized in a certain sense, and people are not paying for whatever they're receiving there, and the issues ethically of things that are available for free legally, and is it still ethical? When you know that the content creator is not getting what they deserve for it, and it's not only with inappropriate material, but with appropriate material. So many things, and the thing is, even to many of us, even who are religious and try to think, and I don't claim to be ethical. I know that I am a sinner, and I'm trying to get better, and I'm trying to work on it, and to become mindful of different issues in life and things. And that's, these are the issues. What is a victimless crime? And it depends sometimes on the content creator. But me myself, I also feel like I put in a lot of effort in my videos, and I'm supposed to be if you're on YouTube for 4,000 hours, you get paid something if you get 4,000 hours of views in a year. And if someone would take my content and put it somewhere else where I'm not getting credit, is that really right? Other things, books that I've written, and I sell them on Amazon for a reasonable price, and I see the same books, someone else bought them, and I'm thankful that they bought them, and they're selling them on eBay for 4 or 5 times as much as I'm selling it for, and I'm not getting that money, and I'm the content creator. I don't know how to deal with something like that, and but to think about the ethical and moral implications of these issues. These are all things to think about, and I don't know. I don't know what to say. So. But these are the types of questions that we can ask ourselves, and how do we deal with them, but these go beyond issues of theology. But it shows that there are issues. If your whole morality and ethics is based on whether or not you're going to get caught, or whether or not you're going to hurt someone else, but if you think there's a victimless crime that you're not going to get caught for, how do you deal with that ethically? I think if you affirm that you're not going to commit a quote-unquote victimless crime for whatever reason, because you know it's wrong, to be good for goodness sake, whether or not you're involved in what do you call it? Whether or not you're true to what you're saying. I'm sorry, whether or not you profess a theology, if you're going to be good for goodness sake, that is a theology. That is a recognition that there is a level of good in the world that is not based on anything other than to be something that's above and beyond yourself. And it's not just society, and it's not just even hurting others. It's not just whether or not you're going to get caught. It is simply being good for goodness sake. This was not a good place to go. So that's the question. And again, I'm thinking that if someone is simply good for goodness sake, that is an expression of a theology, even if they're unaware of their theology. Meaning it's an unconscious, it's what we call in Kabbalah ahava mesuteres. It's a term that you see a lot in the Tanya, particularly, that there's a hidden love. That you love God without professing any theology, without being a scholar of religion, but you love God and you fear God. There's a hava mesuteres, and I guess there's a yira mesuteres. In that case, is what probably really what we're discussing here is not the hava mesuteres, but the yira mesuteres. That we recognize God in our hearts, even if we don't recognize God in our minds or in our mouths. And like I said, it's a lip service to atheism. It's not a true atheism. Whereas if someone is simply, if they're not good for goodness sake, they're only good for the sake of not getting caught, or maybe at least not hurting others, because you don't want others to hurt you the way that you don't want to. You don't want to hurt others for a selfish reason. Kind of an Ayn Rand type of selfishness. There's something to that. It's not nothing. It's not worthless. There is value there, but it has to be recognized. What exactly are we talking about here? Where is that? I don't think it's ethical in a sense, but it's lacking. There's something lacking in that ethic. It's not amoral, but it's immoral. It's not a total lack of morals, but it's a lack of certain morals. To say that you're only avoiding certain activities even for selfish reasons. However, that's still better than nothing. It's still better than engaging in whatever activities you want, and not, there's certainly that selfish expression of morals is better than no morals at all. Certainly, if someone's a Levian Satanist, who at least is, or a ethical humanist, not that much difference between those two. It's better than not being anything at all, but it's not much. It's not, and even for the sake of society as a whole, we discussed before, there is value in sexual morality and things, even when it's not so obvious to us. that is a secular value. That, it's not a religious value, but it's a recognition of what comes next in society. I was, like I said, I didn't finish the whole thought in my other video where I was talking about, this one of my chaplains talking about the influence he had on other chaplains, and then he was saying to me, he said he's surprised by what kind of things they let them watch on TV, the inmates, the cable system they have there, where the inmates pay for cable, but then they also have in the day room a TV that the guys who they're not paying, they don't have a TV which they have to pay for, they don't have a cable which they have to pay for, and how they deal with it. And the guys saying, the chaplain saying to me, he said, what were they watching? He said it looked like Caligula. That's what he said. He said it looked like Caligula. And that issue of what that brings up with that image of who Caligula was, and how that led to the fall of the Roman Empire, because there is something that happens to society when it loses these basic morals, and how many secular people really recognize that. I mean, a lot of religious people have a hard time with that. And accepting what these ideas mean. So, I mean, that's the issue. I guess there's a lot more to discuss here, but that's pretty much what I can bring out from what I'm trying to say here. So, whatever it is, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, and tell me what you think. Thank you.